Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's live webinar. I trust that you're all doing well. Please let me know if you can hear me. It's good to see you, Toki. Good to see you, Lashani. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Let me know where you're joining from, and let me know if you can hear me clearly. Can you all hear me? Please drop me a message and let me know that you can hear me. Good. So I'm happy to hear that you all can hear me. And I'm going to have to begin now. So, Toki, thank you for joining. Please, can you go and remind people on the group in the community to join in now? Because this webinar is not going to last for so long, and we're going to take questions. So it would be nice if you can help me ask the people who are not currently here to join in. I would do that too. So that would take about a minute. Um, I'm doing that now. All right. So we're going to be talking about everything that you need to know about physical child development. And this was actually born out of our conversations in the last week in the community. And we all know that most of the time when we are talking about any important conversation in life like this, is because we are trying to further talk about or solve a problem that we were raising in the community, let's say in the last couple of weeks. And this is because sometimes when people type, it comes off differently. And when they talk, it comes off differently. So talking helps and gives better understanding. And also there's a chance for you to ask questions on a live event like this. So this is why we do this live webinar to help break down some of the points that we've mentioned in the previous weeks about physical child development. I'd like to know where you're joining us from. So I'd like to know where you're joining us from, Olashemi. Thank you for joining. And if you're just joining in, also let me know where you are joining us from. So moving on, let's talk about what physical child development is. When we talk about physical child development, what comes to your mind? It has to do with the physical changes that takes place in the body of a child or in the body of course, every human being that comes into the world experiences a particular physical changes from the head to the toe. It even has to do with the brain development too. So even though I think last week I did a recording about the cognitive development, but today we're going to be talking about the physical changes that happen in the body, which has to do with changes, growth, the skills, the motor skills that the child is beginning to develop as they grow. Thank you, Ajiboye, Oluwatemiwa. Thank you. I can see you. Kindly let me know where you're joining in from. I like to know where you're joining in from. I like to know who I'm connecting with on a live webinar like this. Thank you all for joining. So what we're talking about today is physical child development, and it just has to do with the physical changes and growth and skills that the child begins to acquire as they grow. One of the things I always like to identify when we are talking about physical child development is to point out that physical child development comes naturally. We are not God. You can't create anybody. Are you closing? Are you about to clean here? Are you shutting the door? Now. Is it now? Yes. Yes. No. I'll be out of here in 20 minutes. Yes. I'm so sorry about that, guys. Thank you for joining from Lagos. I am in class and I'm going to quickly try and round up before we finish and then we'll move on. So, usually when we're talking about physical child development, you need to consider that it is natural, and that's why as soon as your child comes, you notice that they begin to suckle. They just imagine that the baby is born today, and the next thing they're already sucking, right? So that is the physical development that happens. So they're already talking, they're already naturally breathing and swallowing without doing anything per se, without you having to show them how to swallow. So that's the first thing that happens when a child begins to develop. And because the changes are usually rapid, and before you know it, you notice that your child is already growing. Before you know it, the child that was the neck was, when a child grows, starts growing. Right? One of the things that happens when they start growing is that they grow from top to bottom. So when a child comes in, you notice that their head is not really that stiff, it's not really that strong. So you have to hold their head carefully so that it doesn't, because it's still growing. So because the changes happen so rapidly, can you guys all hear me? Because the changes happen so rapidly, it is important that a child is being guided by an adult and by the parents, and the parents or the child caregiver should provide an enabling environment for the child to grow in. It should provide an enabling environment for the child to be able to function as they grow. As they grow, they must have the support. That's why anytime we're teaching about parenting, we like to say that the parent is involved, fully involved in giving care, like fully involved. It's not just that you expect some magical things to happen. You must provide the enabling environment. So I remember in the community a couple of weeks, maybe last week or thereabout, someone in the community had asked a question about the child making gestures to sit, and if it was okay to start supporting the child to sit. And we asked her how old the child was, and we told her the child was 4 months. And I said to her, yes, it's okay to start prompting and supporting your child if your child is showing these features, these natural instinct features of wanting to sit. So it is okay to do that. So another thing that happens when a child begins to physically develop is the fact that the changes are rapid. And because infants develop from top to bottom, you see that their head starts, that's one of the things that starts growing. So for example, you see that your 2 months old will begin to start, if you lay them on their stomach, they will raise their head. And sometimes 3 months or 4 months, you see that when you're carrying them, they are raising their head. They don't want you to put them on their on the infant position that you used to know, because their head has started developing to be able to start looking around the environment, because the environment is new to them. So they are trying to get used to the environment, they are trying to understand the changes in the environment. So they are inquisitive, they are learning from the environment. So that's why everything about childcare is very, 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 very vital. So the things that you put in the environment, are they educational? Are they stimulating? Are they inspiring enough to want to make them to develop and grow and meet up that milestone? So because infants develop from head to toe, they first start with their neck. There's physical development, which occurs at different times for every children, right? Because one of the things I always say is that every child has a different milestone. If you don't take anything home today, take this home, that every child has not a different milestone, has a different way they are going to develop. However, there are certain age-bound milestones that children would mostly follow, like a predominant number of children would follow. However, you also have to consider that the uniqueness of your child is based on the environment that you've provided for them, an environment of support, the resources, and how you're able to support them to meet those milestones as a parent. So let's say the person who asked the question in the community the other day asked the question about, oh, my mother-in-law is saying that I should start supporting my child at 3 months to 6. And she met someone that said, oh, he's too young, you don't bother yourself, and she doesn't now provide an enabling environment for the child to sit or crawl. That child will miss that milestone, or you had a delayed growth, a developmental growth, because there was no appropriate support. So support is not some big thing. It's just maybe, let's say, finding that, paying attention to the fact that, your 3-month-old is trying to sit up and raise their head and trying to, find a kind of support, or hold on the bed if you want to kneel, or to try to crawl, or try to stand up, or, grabbing or gripping. And then you start giving them little things to spur that thing up. Say your unit that are trying to score, you can put a toy or an object in front of them and shake to kind of get their attention to move towards you. You've supported that child at that time to meet a particular milestone. And support is relative. It depends on what comes to your head as an adult. That's why you have to be dynamic in your support to your child. You have to be dynamic in thinking. You have to pay attention to the changes. So when we talk about developmental stages, the changes are very, very important. If you are joining in, I'd like to know where you're joining in from. Drop me a message. Let me know where you're joining in from, and let me know if this session is giving you value. So you must be able to understand that every child, every physical development occurs at different times for every child, depending on the family support. However, milestones are always similar, like in a particular framework of growth. The milestones are the same at a certain age. That's why at 2 months, your child should have been able to hold up their head, like I said, and their thumb on, if they are lying on their tummy, they should have been able to hold up their head. So if you keep them on your back, that's why you notice that when your child is going to 2-3 months, if you keep them on their back and maybe changing their diapers or changing their wet diapers, you see that they will begin to kick their legs. Can everybody hear me, please? Let me know if you can hear me. I don't know. I received the message. Someone sent me a message that they can't hear. Okay. Anyways, I don't know. Ella is also asking on what. I'm going to redirect her to it. Okay. So you will see that at 2 months, if you keep your child on the back, they start kicking their legs and their arms, right? And you see that if you're trying to change their diapers, they can begin to struggle with you a bit. That's between 3 months, of course. And as they creep into 4 months, they can start identifying objects, and they can start, trying to reach out to this object. That's why that age where the person who raised the question in the community raised that question is a very important age, because that's when they start identifying objects, and you can use that particular time to put something in front of them to, prompt them to come towards it. You see what I mean now? So you must be able to identify those milestones. So at 2 months, you know that, the child's neck is beginning to grow. So because children go from head to the bottom, their head will first start to develop, and eventually their hands. That's why by the time they go into 6 months, their grip, they have a very strong grip, and sometimes they even start feeding themselves with their grip. They hold. So there's a picture, or there's a picture of the child that people are using to make fun on social media. Grabbing. Has anyone seen that? If you have seen that, please drop it for me in the comment section. Grabbing rice from a plate, and someone said, "Oh, thank you for joining from Ibadan. I can see you. Thank you, Omobolanle." So there's a picture of a child grabbing what's it called? Rice, grain of rice, and it's so strong. Someone said this fish is as strong as the strongest fish I have ever known, something like that. So your child is always, because it's a natural instinct, it happens naturally. Your child will always naturally try to meet this milestone. It is your role as a parent to identify that milestone and try to support that child. You must identify. So even so, because this milestone is kind of creeping on us, it's not like you're going about your normal life, and then you see it. I've noticed that my child is always trying to calm down. So I can now create a small crawling section in my house where I just put them down with some toys for a few minutes. I can put them on a walker, or I can just use items or equipment to promote easy milestones. So between 4 to 6 months, you see that from 6 months now, they start using their hands to support themselves when they are sitting. You see that when they want to sit down, because it's okay, Ola, I can see you. Thank you for joining. Okay, so you can see that they can use their hands to support themselves when they want to sit. By 6 months, they can transfer something from one hand to the other. They can identify an object, and they can reach out to want to collect it from you. They can know sometimes you see that 6 months to describe a particular thing. How do they know that thing is something that they would like? So you now realize that they have reached that milestone where they can now start. They're trying. Their mind is stored up to understand the environment. That's why what you put in the environment is very important. Are they educational? Are they promoting their inspiration? Are they promoting learning? You can use that time to increase their intelligence. You can use it. You can even tell them what it is. So from that age, that 6 months now, they start, they kind of move without so much support. They can move and sit down, they can roll over, turn their back to their stomach, turn their stomach to their back. And then by 9 months, they can sit very well without any form of support. And they can even pull to stand up. So between 7 to 9 months, your child can begin to show gesture of wanting to work. You can put them on a worker to support their work, milestones. You can put items where you can attract them to try to attract them to work or to crawl towards it. Let it be that when you're doing, you're intentional about it. You can use items that can promote learning, that can promote. So anything can be a form of learning. It doesn't have to be academic, or it doesn't have to be school bound. It could be just so you want them to know that this thing is in existence of the world that they are eventually going to come into. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying. So the moment you begin your developmental plan, you must do it with the intention of, meeting a kind of learning for your child. It doesn't have to be academic. It's just to promote easy growth, easy cognitive growth, easy motor skills. Because eventually when your child goes into 12 months, beyond 12 months to 15 months, they can now grip. You see them be able to drink water from a cup very well without a lid or without you necessarily supporting or feeding them. But if you know that by 12 months, your child still needs you to hold cup for them to drink, you must have missed out on the milestone where you're supposed to support them to grip, support them to do those things by themselves at a certain milestone where they were supposed to. It doesn't still mean that they will not achieve it. So parents have a role to play. And so when we say things like, oh, there are milestones to growth, yes, they are, because a certain percentage, a good percentage of children in those different milestones do this particular thing. They do it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your child will reach that milestone. It is dependent, I say it again, dependent on the resources, on the support, on your way of being intentional, that you provide a kind of support system to allow that child to experience that milestone. So parents have a huge role to play. So how do you identify milestones? Pay attention to details. I know we're all busy. Some people are working mothers. Some people are business owners. However, any little things, any little changes that you see in your child, it is okay to kind of be inquisitive to want to see how you can, provide them with the support to do what needs to be done in terms of getting them the equipment and the materials and the resources to get them to achieve this milestone. So in all of this is how I decided to focus mostly on the first 1 year of life, because the question that we had in the community was surrounding that. And this is how to identify everything that you need to know about the child's physical development from birth to 12 months of age. I will be taking questions now. Thank you, all of you that are joining in from Lagos. Thank you for joining from Ibadan. And I think that, two people are joining from Lagos and one person from Ibadan. I'll be taking questions now. If you have any questions, please drop it for me and I will answer, and we'll go off this live in the next 9 minutes. I can see all of you. Thank you for joining. I can see Ola. I can see Omobola Lele. Precious. I can see Ajiboye. That's Somiwa. I can also see Ola for me. I can see Sophie. Thank you, everyone. You have questions for me now. And please, if you're just joining in, you must have missed out on some of the session. I didn't want this session to be so long. Yeah, I'll meet in 5 minutes. I didn't want this session to be so long because I wanted whoever is watching to come back and watch again. So if you have any questions for me, please drop. I have just a few more minutes to be here. We have come to Koshiro and Execute now. So let me know if you have questions. We'll take that question hurriedly and we'll end this session. Have any questions? I see that more people are joining in. you may have to watch the replay. I'll share the link in the community. If you have any questions for me, it's a good time to drop it now. We are talking about physical child development, everything you need to know about physical child development between the ages of 1 month to 12 months. If there is no question at this time, I'm going to end this webinar. And if you drop any question for me in the comment section of this webinar, I will try and answer it. Or if you send any questions to the community, I'll try and answer it. Thank you for joining in and watching up until this time. We will be going off now. I'll see you guys on the next. Bye-bye.